Well, folks, I'm kind of not discouraged. The word is dismayed. I'm having difficulty finding encouragement in what we've been trying to find remedy in the Republican Party. Some of the reasons that our membership and attendance is a little low week after week is because we have no longer put emphasis on, and this has been my direction, on getting people elected. Been there, done that. After what we saw with Kerry Bentivolio and how the traditional Republican Party nationally not only screwed him, but they corkscrewed him. They twisted him in so many different ways that Kerry Bentivolio had very few options. This is not what my opening remarks are about, but week after week, when I see that a lot of conservatives are choosing different venues to pursue their remedies, that's fine. But the Willow Run Tea Party Caucus for 5 years has been about constitutionally limiting government. We thought that getting good people elected was a good remedy for that. I'm no longer as excited about that because when good people go, they come back still good but wounded. Perfect example is Kerry Bentivolio. He's a good man. And I think part of the reason that we're having difficulties in this country is because we won't take time to understand, the voting electorate won't take time to understand what motivates our foreign policy. In my message broadcast, I talked, I said you should study the words Tawhid, Shirk, Wahhabi, and the first pillar of Islam. Now that's relevant to what happened to Kerry Bentivolio. And I'm not going to be able to tie it all together for you tonight. Over a period of meetings I will, and I'm telling you that's my mission. And if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. If people aren't interested and they're more interested in trying to get Republicans elected, then that's going to be what it is. But my mission, folks, is to expose what we have sacrificed for that corrupt bargain that we often talk about, that petrodollar, and it is Islam. I'm talking about Islam. I'm talking about moderate Muslims. It's why I want you to, in the context of this discussion, all of those have to be named. Because we're under the delusion that there is a thing called a Muslim that is not secular, that is secular. There is no such thing as a secular Muslim. They are religious in nature, and they are not moderate. Let me tell you why. Okay, today we had a great outpouring of the Muslim faith on the Duke University campus, didn't we? And Duke University was going to sanction a public cry from their towers of the Islamic prayer 5 times daily that they have to pray. After Franklin Graham pursued some remedy, put a little, like Reagan said, if you can't make them see the light, make them feel the heat. Yeah, that's what Franklin Graham did. He got to their donors. And see, here's the reason. You know, Duke University was started as a ministry college, Christian college. Now, the reason I wanted you folks to study about what the first pillar of the Islamic faith is, the thing that you have to do to become a Muslim, 5 times a day you have to cite and recite this first pillar of faith. And they did that in the quad on Duke University. You know what they did? I'm going to paraphrase, because it's actually what they did. They called Jesus Christ a liar. Because if Jesus Christ is not who he said he was, he's the biggest liar on the history, on the face of this earth that has ever walked. Because here's what they did on the quad of Duke University today. And every day in their prayers this morning over here at this mosque on Fort Boulevard, they proclaim the oneness of God. That's the first pillar of the Muslim faith. It sounds innocuous. It sounds like that's not a bad thing. We as Christians proclaim the one true God, but be very careful about what they mean by the oneness of God. Because the oneness of God means that they mean that God, Allah, has no partners. And if you believe He has a partner, you are a polytheist to gods. And you worship more than one God. And they have a name for that, and that name is S-H-I-R-K, shirk. That's what they were proclaiming on a Christian university diag. That Jesus Christ, worshiping Him, makes us polytheists. We do not believe in the only one God. We believe in a partner of God, which is Jesus Christ proclaiming to be God. You know, Sean Hannity often says, let not your heart be troubled. But you know, the meaning of those words, there's some very deep meanings to that, and I'm going to quote it for you. It has so much deep meaning, I have it memorized. I think I can remember it, and I'm going to quote it. See, in the day the Jews came to Jesus, and they were worried because Jesus proclaimed to be God. And it bothered them. They were troubled in their heart. So He said to them, when they came and questioned this, and this has to do with what's going on today, folks. I often say, and Dan and I have this discussion all the time, this isn't church, and we don't want to be preaching, and I don't want to have one religion as opposed to another, but this is why people are dying today. So I'm going to give you this. When these Jews came to Jesus and were troubled that He claimed to be God, because that's what Islam is, the shirk. That's why people are dying. Jesus said to them this: let not your heart be troubled. You've heard Sean Hannity say that all the time, but he never says anything else after it. Let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in God, believe also in me, Jesus Christ. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. Then Jesus says, I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Thomas was the doubter. He said unto Jesus, he said, Lord, we don't know where you're going, and how can we know the way? Here's the point. Listen to this closely. Here's what Jesus said. This is why Islam hates Jesus Christ. Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life, and no man cometh to the Father but by me. Now Jesus says that where we as constitutionally limited government people believe that Jesus is the way and nobody can come but through Jesus Christ isn't the issue. Whether we believe that or not, that's what Jesus said. That's what the Christian faith believes. That Jesus is the Messiah and Jesus is God. Jesus also said, I and my Father are one. And that means that the one, the Trinity, is something that Islam hates. And in the first pillar of their faith, these moderate Muslims are calling Jesus Christ a liar. They do it nicely. And in invoking their faith, they believe that Sharia law needs to be invoked everywhere. This is factually correct. Now the tenets of Sharia law is not pretty. It is a very strict. Now here's the thing. We, as Christians, we believe that you volunteer or you choose to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, or you choose to become a Christian. Islam, you don't choose. Because you work for the atonement, or you become a shirk. Because the Quran says to kill the shirk wherever you find them. And I'm going to tell you something. I just found out within the last week why Muslims kill Muslims. And you hear all the time that Muslims shouldn't be killing Muslims. But the Wahhabis don't see it that way. Now that people say the Wahhabis are how's everybody saying it now? A radical brand of Islam. No, they're not. They are going by the book. Because they believe in Tawheed. T-A-W-H-E-E-D. Tawheed. They believe in that. And the meaning of that is the original meaning of the verse. Let's not let moderate Muslims say it's something that it's not. Tawhid means invoke, the original interpretation of shirk. And if you are a shirk, you are to be killed wherever they find you. Now the Wahhabis, this is the Sunnis, this is Saudi Arabia, this is a dictator, Prince Faisal. Is it Prince Faisal? I think so. The king of Saudi Arabia. He's a secular king. He's not necessarily a religious theocracy there, but the body politic of Saudi Arabia is. And the majority of Saudi Arabia is Wahhabi. And Wahhabi believes, and this is what I just found out, the reason the Sunnis are killing Shias, has anybody ever wondered why? Do we know why? I just found out. The reason see, because I saw 700 Shias lined up, and I saw, and bowing down, and I saw Sunnis shooting them, blowing their heads up. And I made myself watch, because originally I thought they were Christians. But what I found out, they were Shia Muslims. And why? You know why? Because as Christians, those Shias are shirks. We better understand this as a country, because it's ready to fall on us. If they are shirks, because here's why. This is what I just found out. The Wahhabist interpretation of Tawhid, the original meaning, is that God has no partners, and that Muhammad cannot be prayed to. Muhammad is not God. He is not a partner of God. This is Wahhabis. Okay, this is why they kill Shias, because Shias pray to Muhammad. Shias believe that Muhammad can answer prayer. And the Tawhidists, the original intent of the Quran, says, no, he can't. He is a prophet, as they say Jesus is. That's why they put the Shias in the same boat as Christians and Jews. Because as Trinitarians, we believe that there's a Holy Spirit, that there's Jesus Christ, and that there's God. And that they're all in one. I and my Father are one. You see, Islam is what it is. It is not a radical religion. It is what it is. The radical notion is that there is a moderate Muslim who can claim Islam for peace. Because Islam, what's the word? I'm having a hard time remembering the word. Means subjection. Submission is the word I couldn't remember. When Governor Snyder, and this is the reason that this is more important here in this message getting out than what the Republicans are doing, because it didn't bother the Republicans that Governor Snyder welcomed Islam into the state of Michigan at Cobo Hall as the governor of this state. He didn't realize that these people who he was welcoming were unindicted co-conspirators, and they had laundered. Maybe he realized that it didn't matter. They were unindicted co-conspirators, and they had laundered $12 million to terrorists who kill Christians. Who not only kill Christians, it's the way they kill Christians. They kill Christian children. They cut off the children's heads. This is graphic, folks. And they put it on a stake and show that to other Christians and say, if you do not deny your faith, if you don't stop being a polytheist, we're going to do this to you and your children. Radical? It isn't radical. It is what it is. It's forced faith. And faith that is forced is full of foolishness. It is not faith at all. And that's what we're facing right now. Okay, now, how am I going to hook this up with what the other part of my message is? The petrodollar. The collapse of our dollar that's getting ready to happen, and why we have the foreign policy of a president who only wants to weaken this country, and that's his plan, to weaken it, so that we have less resistance to the taking over of this country of Islam. That is what his mission is. I'll stand by my words, whether I can prove it or not. It is what I believe. Barack Hussein Obama is a Muslim. My belief, you're not going to get proof from me because you can't prove faith. As a matter of fact, the very definition of faith is non-scientific. You can't prove it. If you could prove God, you wouldn't need faith to believe in Him. Come on in, folks. So how does this Islamic Quran, moderate Muslims, how does that play in to what's happening economically today? I'm going to tell you that it's very, very relevant, and the fact that our party is whistling as they drive by the graveyard is a good, that's kind of a good analogy. The Democrat Party doesn't really care. The Republican Party lies about caring. Whoa, that's going to get me in trouble. You know what? The reason I categorized it like that is there's a reason Kerry Bentivolio wasn't reelected, and I don't think we heard the reason. I heard about his notion of chemtrails. Well, I'm going to tell you something. We've got some stuff coming up on the activity of some of these chemtrails that Kerry Bentivolio was talking about, but I heard from some Republicans that Kerry Bentivolio was a little bit eccentric. There was a lot of reasons that Kerry Bentivolio wasn't accepted. And it all has to do with, there is a thing that he wouldn't give them, and who they are is quite significant. He wouldn't give them the thing that they needed, and David Trott will give them the thing that they needed when it comes down to it. We're going to be facing some very serious things when it comes down to this petrodollar collapse. You know, I refer to it as a corrupt bargain. Now listen, how is it that when we took, through the Bretton Woods, I don't know if you know the history of it, I'm not going to go into all of that, but when we took the dollar off the gold standard, Richard Nixon, a Republican, did this to protect the thing that, you know, the reason that we had to do that is because we spent so much money on the Vietnam War. And then we had the Great Society on top of that. So that debt machine, that dollar print, the Federal Reserve kept printing, and those dollars were coming off there lickety-split, and no longer could we guarantee $35 an ounce for gold. And that was the promise we gave in Bretton Woods. So Nixon had to cease the convertibility of the dollar to gold, and that's what happened. And what took its place was this thing called the petrodollar. Sorry, okay, so how does this hook up to Islam and the evil that lurks in Islam? Well, I call it a corrupt bargain. I say that we dealt with the devil, and the devil's calling in his markers. Because here's what happened. In order to keep this debt dollars flowing, in order to do all these social programs, in order to honor the debt that we incurred in the Vietnam War, in order to continue to give the food stamps, in order to continue to do all the social programs, what isn't necessarily bad on its face, I will never let somebody starve in front of me. I will feed them my last drop of water, food, whatever I've got before I watch somebody starve. Nobody's going to say that I don't care. But I care enough to teach somebody how to fish rather than give them my fishing pole. Okay, I care enough about that. So, again, what we're getting back to is how the philosophy of the Democrats opposed to a Reagan-esque philosophy. Rather, you notice I didn't say Republican. The Reagan philosophy was teaching them how to fish rather than, and you know, you can go back and even the Democrats will say it. Bill Clinton has a piece on One America News, if you ever get that channel, where he says about social spending and welfare, how they have to teach them to get off. It sounded good, but he didn't practice it in policy. We printed debt dollars to continue all of this social spending because it got the Democrats' votes. That's what they learned. Just like the Tocqueville said. Just like the Tocqueville said, democracy will fail when it is that they can vote themselves largesse. So why is it affected us so badly when we hooked up the value of the dollar to oil? The story's been told a lot of times here, but I think it's more important than getting somebody elected. It's more important than having somebody here to try to get elected. I'm not going to ask them to come. They're welcome to come. This is important. Why the petrodollar? Why we will deal with the devil of Islam, who says that Jesus Christ is a liar. Let's not quibble about this. You do the research. The first pillar of faith of Islam is that Jesus Christ is a liar. So why would we deal with a body politic through a dictator? This is what makes it convenient for us. We thought, Nixon did, Kissinger, that we wouldn't have to deal with their body politic, which was Wahhabi. Wahhabiist. Bin Laden was a Wahhabiist, folks. Bin Laden was a Wahhabi. Al-Qaeda is from that, what everybody wants to say is a radical sect of Islam. But it is Islam. Like I continue to say, the radical notion is that there is a moderate Muslim who's trying to claim this religion for peace. And it is not, and they cannot. What would have caused clear-thinking people to sign a corrupt bargain, as I call it? To keep them in power, to keep that debt machine flowing. In 1971, Saudi Arabia and all of those nations over there, Islamic nations, were very fearful of Egypt. Not Egypt. Egypt was fearful of Israel. There was a thing in '68 called the 6-Day War. I was in 1968. I was a junior, thinking only about that time. I was praying before the basketball games, but I was only really thinking about basketball or football at Belleville High School. I wasn't thinking about a 6-day war. Although in my senior disposition, I did a story on it. I did my term paper on the 6-Day War. So I had some knowledge about this thing that Israel did over there. It was absolutely amazing. It was through our support, our weaponry, that Israel was able to make everybody's eyes wide open over there. You could see the whites of every Islamic nation's eyes after Israel got done, because in 6 days they defeated everybody over there. And Saudi Arabia and all the OPEC nations was very fearful that Israel was going to come through and knock their windows out. Now the reason I say knock their windows out, because I'm going to do another analogy. It was their oil wells that they were fearful of. But we became the protectorate of them. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm a little excited about this because it's very important. You've heard this message many times. When we don't have a speaker, you're going to hear about this from me. Because when Henry Kissinger went over there, it reminds me a little bit like in Detroit with the Purple Gang. I said it before, I love the analogy. I'm going to sell you protection, Mr. Donut Shop owner, Mr. Dressmaker owner. You know, I can almost guarantee you your windows won't get broken and your cash register won't get robbed. I can guarantee that. But if you don't pay the premium, I can guarantee they will. So Kissinger goes over, as I say, the corrupt bargain. He goes over as an arbitrator of this fear that those Islamic nations had, because we actually, through Israel, did the deed over there. And it was not such a bad thing that was done. I'm okay with what they did. This was a 6-day war was accomplished. It was amazing. But Kissinger used that because now we have dumped the Bretton Woods Agreement. We took the U.S. dollar off the gold standard because we stole from the nations who took our dollars, and we took their gold. And we promised those nations with the Bretton Woods Conference that we would never print more dollars that would make that ounce of gold worth less than $35 an ounce. The way we kept printing, and the inflation and the deflation inflationary cycle, the thing that, it's kind of hard for a drywall guy to figure out, but what I know is that the price of gold per ounce got up to astronomical heights. So countries were left holding these printed dollars, and they wanted the gold. And Nixon says, we can't give you gold, I'm sorry, I'm just going to lie to you about that. I'm not going to give you the convertibility of the gold to the dollar. He canceled it. So France wanted their gold, and we said no. Okay, so Bretton Woods Conference was canceled. So what took its place? They had this genius idea, the petrodollar. Wilson and Henry Kissinger over to Saudi Arabia because they fear Israel's going to take their oil wells, and probably would have. Maybe they would have. If they hadn't signed this deal. Kissinger says, okay, here's the deal. If you will sell your oil in nothing but U.S. dollars, and the revenue you get from that, take and buy our treasury bills, our debt dollars. Are you hearing this? The debt dollars. You have to buy the U.S. debt if we protect you. And if you don't do this, I can guarantee your windows are going to get broke. He didn't say that, but they knew it. They knew that if the United States didn't give them that protection, that Israel would take care of business, because it was more than economics with Israel, it was existence. It was the very existence, and Israel was highly motivated. And I say this, folks, America ought to be highly motivated, because it is not necessarily economics here, it is our existence. That's why I don't care anymore to get Republicans elected. I kind of would like to. I believe that Mitt Romney is well suited to take care of this economic collapse. I don't know if it's going to happen. He is getting more interested in running. I don't know what's going to happen. I do communicate with him about once a month. He doesn't talk to me, but I talk to him, and I'm guaranteed that he's listening. Okay? He's hearing my message. And the reason I mention that, look, it's hard to separate ego from being proud of our caucus. I'm proud of what this caucus means to the state. And if I can proclaim that Mitt Romney is hearing the director of the Will Run Tea Party caucus, that means something to me. You can call it ego if you want. But I'm proud of you people that have made that reality. So where I started to go there was the calamity of collapse is going to need, which I believe we're having, because that petrodollar deal, it's over. It's done. We are propping it up. We're like the little Dutch boy in the dam. And we've got a finger in the hole here, and we've got a finger in the hole there, and we're running out of fingers. The thing that we're doing when a Saddam Hussein dictator of an Islamic State, Iraq, dumps the currency reserve of the U.S. dollar and no longer sells oil in dollars but sells it in euros. That's what he did. That's what he did. And that was the beginning of a lot of water coming over that bridge that the little Dutch boy could not continue to put his fingers in the holes. A little awkward analogy there, but it is kind of good, because what we're doing now is, instead of the Dutch boy, what we're doing now is mercenarying our military. It's a little awkward with words, but try to think through what it means. We are making mercenaries out of our military. We are sending them with a cause, and they honorably go. Don't ever anybody tell me that Dennis is dissing our military, because I'm not. I'm dissing the ones who will send them in silence, and that is the body politic of this country, who will not wake up, who are cowed in the comfort of the pews across the country and in the churches across this country. And they will not consider the consequence of taking our military and forcing Saddam Hussein to die, number one, and replacing him, because that's what we did. When he took Iraq off of the U.S. dollar and accepted euros for oil, that was a very threat to the debt machine of this country. This is what all of our foreign policy is about. That's why I'm angry with Republicans who will not consider what the costs are to my grandchildren if this doesn't get taken care of. It is the possibility. I don't know. Possibility wasn't the word I was using there. I got dissuaded. It is the reason that I want to hold Republicans accountable for the things they do while they're in office. I had a notion, I no longer want to push in the promisers, I want to pull out the posers. You're going to go promising a thing, and it sounds real good. All we got is what you're saying until you get there, and then you lie to us. It is not so much a lie as it is, I can't really do what I said by dictionary definition, that's a lie. But when they get up there, they see these things I'm talking about, folks. I'm very sure that the drywall guy has seen some things that these people who are sent to Washington don't see till they get there. And then they're given the big picture. You have to vote this way, or this is going to happen. If we do not get this done, listen, that vote that Kerry Bentivolio let come down from the committee to the floor, Kerry Bentivolio could have blocked that vote. He gave us several reasons, which neither of them sounded good enough to Michelle Bachmann, Louis Gohmert, or some of the other conservatives who wanted that to be blocked. Kerry Bentivolio had some good reasons that he thought was good enough to let that come down to the floor. But the thing that happened when that came down to the floor Or do you folks realize that there was over a quad, and this is all that matters about that bill. Other things happened, the amnesty, the Obamacare, that's all minute to what I'm getting ready to tell you. A $quadrillion. Quadrillion, I almost can't even say the word, much less understand how much money it is. A $quadrillion in a thing called derivatives. Derivatives that are credit default swaps. I'll insure you if you'll insure me. Now, that's a bad deal because when this agreement that Todd and I do goes south, we both should be go south with it. Because he guaranteed me and I guaranteed you. But that's not what happened with this new bill. What this new bill did with Dodd-Frank was able to put these derivatives, and we got it limited, but this is a problem that I have, and I'm conflicted with it, but I'm agreeing with the left on this. We should not have used taxpayer dollars to guarantee through the FSLIC, federal guarantee of these credit default swaps to bail out these banks. Why do we even have a problem with a default that may be on our horizon? And now why did that vote that Kerry let come to the floor authorize you and me and the title, every single title that is on our land, even cars that have titles? You know, you have a certificate of title, you don't have a title. You have a thing called certificate. Check it out. You do not have a deed to your house. You have a warranty deed. And not to get complicated with this, but the process by which, I thought that was Dave, and I thought he fell, but it isn't. The process by which the warranty deed and the certificate of title came to be means that our federal debt is tied to everything you hold title to. Now, when it is that this bill that was passed guaranteed banks, too big to fail banks, and they're also too big to jail, we found that out. Now we're responsible. Why? Because what they know is that the petrodollar is going to collapse. Because we can't keep propping up dictators when their body politic becomes Wahhabist, becomes radical Islam, they call it, and it bothers me that Lou Alcindor, who knows who Lou Alcindor is? He's not Lou Alcindor anymore, is he? He once was Cassius Clay. Muhammad Ali, Lou Alcindor is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He spoke today. Did you hear it on the news? We ought to be more considerate of the religion of peace. Yeah, does he pray 5 times a day? Does he go in the public square and call Jesus Christ a liar? Does he do that? No, he doesn't pray 5 times a day. But you know what? He's willing to say that that's what it is, because the first pillar of faith, as I said, just the new folks came in and didn't hear it. The first pillar of faith is that God has no partners, the oneness of God, and that Jesus Christ is a shirk, that we are shirks, and that we need to be killed wherever they find us because we're polytheists. We believe in more than one God. That's what Lou Alcindor was saying about the religion of peace. It isn't the religion of peace, it's the religion of submission. This caucus has become issue-oriented, folks. I'm okay with trying to get good Republicans elected, and I'm sad to say that if we was to try to get good Democrats elected, they wouldn't come. They wouldn't come, so I'm not going to beg them, and I'm not begging Republicans. I'm not about getting people elected anymore. Not anymore. I'm not even about the convention politics of the Republican Party. I'm not about that. I'm about issues. I'm about holding these people who we get elected accountable to why the foreign policies of this country is no different from one president and one party to the other. Why is it Barack Obama's doing the same thing George W. did and Bill Clinton did? There's a reason for that, and we better face up to it. We better understand it. This petrodollar is a thing that's looming. It is the evil that lurks, and it looms. You probably found out I like to alliterate when I can, because I am illiterate, but I like to alliterate letters, because it has some effect. It is the evil that's lurking and looming. This petrodollar, this thing that the body politic of Islam is causing stress and strife, these countries are going to dump the dollar, the petrodollar. And when that's happened, they can no longer afford to buy our debt. And what happens when that happens? All those dollars that are over there in their in their reserve currencies in these countries. Like I said before, Germany, when they want to buy oil, they had to exchange their money for U.S. dollars in order to buy that oil. They don't have to do that anymore. So all those dollars that we send over there electronically, they're going to come home to roost. They're going to come back here. When that happens, the dollar defaults. Now, what does this mean? We're going to face some very hard times. And at least you folks who hear this message will not be surprised by it. You're still going to have some hard times. I put forth the notion of 10 circles of 10. You need to have 10 families you can count on. And hopefully, in around the surrounding county, there are another 10 circles of 10 families that you can count on. I talked to Kerry Benvolio about this, and he loves the idea. He's a beekeeper. He's got honey. And I said, Kerry, 10 circles of 10, that's 100 families. That's 10 families in each circle. How many jars of honey would 100 families, could it keep you going just selling honey? Yeah, that would be great, you know. And so would a home repair, so would a mechanic that fixes tires, or whatever. 10 circles of 10. It is the bartering aspect, and it would be a temporary thing that would get us through the calamity of the collapse that everyone says is coming. Except for those Pollyannas. A Pollyanna is a good word. I'm not Pollyanna anymore. I'm a realist. I'm pragmatic, and I paid a price for being pragmatic. Most Republicans don't like that. Most Tea Parties don't like that. The traditionals like pragmatics. Because sometimes you look at the consequence of what's going to happen in the primaries. Okay, for example, there's, what, 12 candidates getting ready to go? I think that your director, I believe this, has been successful in outing Mitt Romney and causing him to jump in the race. Whether or not Mitt Romney is the person that's going to win this, I'm telling you one thing. He is the person who has blocked Jeb Bush from winning it. Already he's done that. Already Mitt Romney has caused Jeb Bush's donors to think twice about giving to Jeb Bush. I will regain some political activity to block Jeb Bush. Republicans don't want to hear that. They want to hear the best person to win against Hillary, and Jeb Bush will lose against Hillary. But by the same token, if we beat each other up in the primary, a person who is conservative enough to win a good primary, and this is the pragmatics about me, and Tea Party people are going to hate me. Well, they are already giving me hate mail. A person that is Tea Party enough and conservative enough, such as Ted Cruz, if he was to win that primary, how many people actually think he would beat Hillary Clinton? Do we? Okay, I respect your belief, but I don't think so. Because but it's just what I think. Because of the body politic of this country in a nationwide election, Hillary Clinton is a force that has to be dealt with. Now let's get back to the point. Well, we can do question and answers in a little bit because.
I was just asking, what do you think the chances of her and maybe Elizabeth Warren teaming up?
Well, that could be a thing that unites their party after Hillary takes the nomination.
They both beat each other up, and that's what we're about.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be what happens, and that would strengthen their position. I'm telling Mitt Romney right up front, if it happens, no, it came from your director. If this happens, and I sent an email to Rick Perry, and I asked Rick Perry to accept the offer from Mitt Romney, up front, forward, and now, as the running mate. Because here's what I think is going to happen. Our governor is going to get in the race, but he's not going to get in the race to win it. He's going to get in the race to become Jeb Bush's running mate. That's what I think is going to happen. I'll fight against that. Because our governor didn't have enough savvy about him to understand this Islamic problem. To me, that's bigger. That rises to the level. And I've had some very good friends who says that it doesn't rise to the level of what we're trying to do in the state of Michigan with with the policies, public policies, and Republicans. I think it rises above the level. It's just what I think. I think that if you do not understand this Islamic thing, the thing that we send good men and women to foreign fields to honor this flag that we pledge allegiance to and to honor this nation, and they do honorably. They go. They don't ask questions, and some of them don't come back, and some of them come back very different. And if we will authorize that in silence, then whose fault is that? That's us. If we will continue to elect Republicans to office who do not consider this Islamic problem, this corrupt bargain, we dealt with people who believe it's right to kill other Muslims if they pray to Muhammad. We made a bargain with those people. And if we've got Republicans in office now who says that doesn't rise to the level of what we're trying to get done, they will sacrifice anything to get a hold of that lever of power. As with the Democrats. Because all they want is the power. And there's a thing that's getting ready to happen, folks. Now, I'm going to cut short because this is something that I carry on just about every time that I have to fill in when speakers don't want to come. And thank you for coming, by the way. When there's no speaker up here who is the grand person who draws a crowd. First thing people ask, how many you got? You know, it's not how many. It's the type of people that come to this caucus. But I'm going to play for you a piece that is going to... Now listen, this is going to scare you. Because if it doesn't scare you, you don't think. And I know we have a body of thinking people in this caucus. This guy says what I say, but he says it better. We're going to have Louis Gohmert later on. Dan called me up. We got that. Mike was able to get that addressed to the House. Louis Gohmert chastises the president for his policies, for his not doing what he ought to be doing. But you know what? We didn't chastise Bush. We didn't chastise Clinton. We did for the things that he did, but we didn't for his policies. They're all the same. The policies are the same. But I respect Louis Gohmert for chastising. But this fellow that I'm getting ready to end that little chord that